Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Let's Talk Retail. This is where we embark on an extraordinary journey through the realms of retail innovation and transformation. I'm your host, Jitendranath Patri, and I'm thrilled to introduce you to a series unlike any other. In this podcast, Let's Talk Retail, we will dive deep into the heart of the retail industry to bring you conversations with true thought leaders. These are the visionaries, the change makers, and the disruptors. We will be exploring the stories and insights of these remarkable individuals who transformed the way we shop, think, and experience retail. So fasten your seatbelts and get ready for an exhilarating journey as we bring you face to face with thought leaders of the retail world. Our guest today is one such individual, and with him, we'll try and unravel a lot of mysteries and a change that's really happening. And it's truly a remarkable and extraordinary guest. He's Sanjeev Rao, CEO at Being Human. And his journey really didn't start off like the way it was planned out to be. He started off as a chef and then soon realized that that was not his calling. And by the way, he specialized in not the frontier cuisine. Thankfully, I think he made his foray into retail. And that's where he found his true, I think the calling really set upon him. And he's worked in multiple organizations, and we'll speak to him about that as we go along. And in the initial conversation, he was telling me, hey, you know what? I'm just not a CEO. I know 14 languages. I said, wow, what else? And he said, I'm also an author. And he's writing a book where he's bringing out all his experience in his years of retail. And he's put it into his book, I think, which was going to release sometime in December. And not only that, I think his experience and the way he's built the Being Human brand has made this brand a case study in leading management institutes across India. And let's talk to him about that as well. Yeah. So without much further ado, I think let's dive in deep into this episode. And Sanjeev, thank you so much for joining us. Absolute pleasure to have you. And Sunday morning, thank you for taking the time.
Thank you for having me over.
My pleasure. The pleasure is all mine, Sanjeev. So what's cooking? I know Sunday morning, 10:30, just before lunch. So what's cooking? You have a book coming in all. So
Yeah. So Jiten, I started. So I'm not a person who has just come in the middle of his career into retail. I started my job right up from the shop floor, and I'm very proud to say that I started my journey in retail as a store manager and worked my way up. So yes, I mean, all these 29, 30 years of being in retail, I have moved across formats, moved across geographies, have seen the ups and downs of businesses happening, have seen bosses, leadership in various shapes, size, color, and sound. So I thought that it's very important that people need to know the not so known facets about what goes behind the doors of retail. Everybody likes to talk about the beautiful looking store. Everybody wants to talk about the lovely merchandise and how to go about selling and all of that. But I want to talk about what really happens behind those closed doors. And that's exactly what my book is all about. I've been writing it now for a long, long time. Every year, I think I'm going to publish it, but I think this time for sure in December is what I would like to release that. Yeah.
absolutely, I'm definitely waiting for it. And I was going through your profile, and as we were talking in the initial call, very extensive career, and where I think you've led some of the businesses, turned it around. What approach did you take? What were these kind of path that you take to kind of do all this and build some of these businesses?
So Jitin Singh, the thing is, the way that I see it is I just went with the flow. And probably my first job was at RPG Retail, where I used to look after Music World. And maybe that was the time when retail was just picking up in India. And therefore, the amount of learnings that we had at that point in time probably catapulted a lot of people of my batchmates who were there at that point in time. A lot of them kind of catapulted over a period of time into various companies, into various formats. Second thing was my never-ending thirst to learn what's next. Just to let, by the time I was done with Music World and Planet M, Napster had come down. So it was also that the industry forced me to look at various formats. And by the time Napster was down, the music industry, the cassettes and CD industry was going down. And that's when I got this opportunity to be a part of the seamless mall, as we used to call it in those days, which was central. And then from there, I moved on to the food business. So I started something for the Jubilant Group called Total Hypermarkets and Mall. And that was also a massive learning for about 6 years or 7 years then, was to basically create an arbitrage model of how to break even a hypermarket. So there were so many learnings. That was the first time in India where I launched a hypermarket with a full-fledged mall below. Maybe not that large a size, but about 80,000 square feet of mall space and food space with hypermarket sitting on top, which is very much the Tesco Lotus model. And moving on from there, I remained in food with Aditya Birla, with Landmark Group in Spar, got Oshaw Oshaw came into India, Oshaw went back, we got Spar back again, and so on and so forth. And then the bug hit me that do I actually know everything about retail? No. I mean, I don't. So I said, okay, why don't I actually look at opportunities in apparel? And that's how I moved into Raymond and did quite a long stint with Raymond and now with Being Human. So the idea is what pushed me through all of this journey is only one thing, which is the quest to learn. And even today, I'm being very, very honest to tell you this, that even today, when I joined Being Human as a management trainee. I joined this organization saying, let me learn, let me not give what I have. Maybe it's right, maybe it's wrong. But let me be like a management trainee who comes into an organization and starts learning and then understands the organization and then tries to put the strategy together. So I think that's more or less what I've gone through. Yeah.
Interesting. I think, and why did you look at being a management trainee? I mean, what is it that made you think, hey, let me start from the grassroots?
See, Jiten, the thing is, honestly, every organization has its culture, number one. Every organization has have people who have different skill sets, and every organization carries a DNA. For example, Future Group used to have a very typical DNA. Reliance has a very typical DNA. Aditya Birla has a very typical DNA.
Right.
So if at a leadership position we try to straight away move in and try to make those changes basis what we feel is the right implementation for that organization, trust me, 90% of the time it's wrong. And this, I'm not trying to say anything, but I'm just trying to put out a point that from my point of view, it's wrong. Because you really do not know how that particular organization may behave with your strategy. So it's very important for you to understand the people, the process, the culture, including the management, the promoters, how the promoters look at the business, how they want to see the business moving forward. So that's the whole point.
Interesting. Interesting. I think fantastic. I think not many would I think focus on this, right? I've had a fair share of talking to leadership across retail, and nobody looks at it like this. I think which is phenomenal. And I think that's what I think makes the brand.
So I call it CEO, a trainee CEO or a CEO under training.
Yeah, I think as we go along, I think you'll prove that point. So you said process, you said people. So how did you manage all of this and then still bring about that innovation and efficiency in the organization?
So is this particularly across all the companies or you're talking about
You.
being human? Okay. So see, you have to understand that one is that I give you a blank paper to write. And the other is that I give you a story and I tell you to edit. And the third is I give you a story and tell you to rewrite that story. Read it and rewrite. So in my case, it was that there was a story which was already there, a very strong one. The only thing is I had to rewrite that entire story. And I'm blessed to have promoters as I have in today's date who just have one thing that Sanjeev, these are our main goals. And this is exactly where this needs to remain as it is. And the rest is what you can rewrite. So I rewrote this whole story. Now, just to let you know that being human has some very strong pillars. We are basically a socially conscious brand. Now, when I say socially conscious brand, the first thing that most of the people ask me is, Sanjeev, are you talking about sustainability? Sustainability is a very small part of, of the overall ecosystem of being socially responsible. So, yes, we do sustainability, and I'll talk more about that. But what we typically do is we ensure that whatever we do has a linkage to giving back to society. Now, if you look at the monies that we pay to the as the amounts which are left over, I mean, post pack, whatever money that is there, we ensure that it's used for purposes like medical care, education. We make sure that there is enough and more happening with specially abled people. In fact, just to let you know that stores of mine employ specially abled people, and as we speak, there has been a long drawn dialogue which is happening in terms of absorbing soldiers who have been wounded while on duty and have retired from active service. How do we ensure that we give them a decent job? How do we ensure that the dignity of labor remains with them across our stores? A lot of women empowerment. We opened the first all women run store in Bangalore, and we are looking at opening more, so on and so forth. And then coming to sustainability, we are working with many agencies to ensure that our clothing is sustainable, starting from our bags to our buttons to our denims, to our usage of water while washing the denim, using more of laser, using less of water, very less. I mean, probably we have cut down the water consumption for washing a denim by nearly one fourth, and so on and so forth. So this is exactly what we do. This is the whole purpose of the brand. And I personally believe that when a brand has two things, Jitain, and this is very important and specifically important for being human, is that one, it has to be relevant to the TG that you're talking to. And in this case, our TG is the Gen Z and the millennial. So one, you have to be very relevant, and two, you need to have a purpose. And until unless you do not have a purpose, I'm not saying that brands who do not have a purpose are not successful. Yes, of course they are successful. But brands who have a purpose have a much more better focused, clear pathway as to where they are. And that's exactly what we are in the process of creating with Being Human. And it is working for us. It's working for us.
Absolutely. I think fantastic move to get those people from the army to kind of come and work, because typically they are left on the sidelines, right? To fend for themselves. And almost, I think that's part of the transformation that you're doing here with Being Human. In addition to, I think also adopting or adapting, however you see it, to the technology. That's
Absolutely. Absolutely. So as an organization, Jitin, we have a very simple policy, which is digital first. I have been saying this on many platforms, and I'll again say this now, that look, the physicality of retail is going nowhere. The physicality of retail would remain. However, seamlessness in the customer's purchase behavior would change. And that is exactly where digital comes in. Now, whether digital is to efficiently ensure your supply chain logistics, or digital is being used for your customer interactions, or whether digital is being used for omni-channel. The latest, which is digital, is being used to create a metaverse store. So, so we look at all aspect of our organization from a digital perspective. Wherever possible, we have the inclusions of digital, and we also keep the physical. And that's exactly what we call the phygital avatar of Being Human.
right.
So much so that we are in the process, and maybe in a year or two, we are looking at launching a completely a store, maybe within a mall, which has absolutely no manpower, which has no stock, and people can actually walk in and buy. So we are giving the physicality of moving out of your house and going into a mall, but at the same time, giving you the experience of digital and what digital can do. We all saw that the acceleration of digital happened post COVID, because COVID actually forced everyone to move towards and that's the huge push which happened. And that ensured that every single retailer actually is no longer I can maybe look at digital to I must have digital. So whether it is you being available on all the platform, whether it is omni-channel retail, whether that is ensuring that your customer service or your customer grievances are moving typically to chatbots and stuff like that. So yes, digital is here to stay. It's good. It will ensure better seamlessness in the customer's purchase journey. However, uh, roti, kapda, or makan. And I typically say, in तीनों को touch and feel तो जरूरत
True.
है.
True. Absolutely. I think we're seeing that as making a comeback big time as we for the last couple of years at least. Yeah. And any examples of these technologies that you kind of put in place that have made an impact?
But without taking the names, I would say that we are looking at tying up with an Israeli company which ensures a huge jump in productivity purely from the supply chain logistics point of view. There are tools that we are using to ensure that our cart to purchase journey kind of shortens and becomes much more better and seamless. And there are many other tools that we are using from a data analytics point of view that gives us a sharper input into the customer behavior, buying behavior. There are tools that we are using or are proposing to use now. As I speak, we are in dialogue to ensure that we are in the distribution business also. We supply to MBOs to ensure that how do we track our tertiary sales?
Okay.
Because the biggest challenge in the multi-branded outlets is that data doesn't flow through. All we get is the data which is limited only till the distributor and not the actual tertiary sale, and it's very manual. So we are trying to ensure that that becomes absolutely available on real time.
Brilliant.
So yes, and
I think the last mile, especially with MBOs, I think is a critical piece. Yeah, which I think has been missing for a while now. Yeah.
yeah.
And is this part of the all the transformation that you've done post the pandemic, or is it just something that has gone along?
Well, I kind of joined the organization on 2001 August. And more or less during the pandemic, everybody knows, I mean, stores were opening, shutting down. So it was pretty much starting from scratch, if you ask me. Smaller companies, it was more or less starting from scratch because the landscape had changed. People were not behaving the way that they used to behave pre-pandemic. Post-pandemic was 2021, if I remember, was still a large part of the first quarter of 2021 was India was opening, shutting down, and that's exactly what was happening. But yes, when I looked at the whole business, we literally had to change. We said, look, a lot of things have to change. Processes have to change. Systems have to change. The way that we look at business has to change. Product has to change. That's the most important thing. Seamlessness of purchase journey has to change. So if you ask me, literally, there has been a re-engineering which has happened over the last 2 years in every aspect of the business.
And it is also, does this also mean that you had to possibly kind of mentor your teams to kind of relook the way business is done?
Absolutely. Today's date, I have a great team and a very resilient team, very hardworking team. But whatever said and done, being resilient, hardworking, all of that also needs continuous change. Because in today's date, we do not know. I mean, what's going to happen in 6 months' time? Are we going to face another COVID or not? We really don't know. So
Yeah.
we at any point in time, what COVID has particularly taught me is not to typically go overboard with anything. So what I call a responsible expansion, responsible way of working around the business. At the same time, having the aspiration for the kind of growths based on the kind of height of glass ceiling that you're facing. So, so having said that, I think yes, that's more or less where this whole thing stacks up.
And anywhere those instances where you kind of mentored have really played out as a kind of a milestone?
Absolutely. I think at every point in time, we need to stand up as examples to people who look up to us. And mentoring is a very large part of that. The way I look at mentoring is a two-way street. I'm pretty proud to say that throughout my journey in retail, there are multiple things that I have learned from people while mentoring them. And I believe that as people who are right at the top in the leadership, it becomes very important to listen to what your mentees have to say as well. So I think is what I do. I continuously do mentorship. It's not that we have a accelerated leadership development program where I mentor personally, ensure that I sit with my team, which is selected there, and mentor them. There's a whole lot of initiatives which is going behind it now, and also the fact is I learn a lot while mentoring. So I believe again a little different way of thinking is that you'll be surprised if I tell you that I have a boy who works in the design studio. His job is to ensure that he picks up clothes and puts all the samples back to where it was. And then he again takes it out and shows. And he told me, he said, sir, I want, and we are just moving into a new office. And he said, sir, if you do this particular thing in the new studio, it's going to help us in this way. And trust me, nobody thought about it. So, here is a guy whose job is only to pick up the samples, put it back, and make sure the studio is in place. And he comes back giving an idea which the CEO of the company or the COO of the company could never think about, or even the designers couldn't think about. And that's what I call mentoring. So when I mentor, I get mentored as well.
Absolutely. No, I think it's definitely a two-way street. Otherwise, the learning will never really
Yeah.
happen. And how much as a CEO, one is, of course, the people in the office. Then there is people within the organization. Then there are the customers, right? How much of emphasis do you really put as the CEO, right? Because at times I see a lot of things relegated. How much of effort or time or whatever you put into customer experience development?
So honestly, customer experience development is a continuous process. I believe it's a continuous process. One cannot be 100% compliant because you cannot satisfy everybody. But wherever possible, we ensure that the journey, the experience of the customer is excellent. In our stores, we have a very simple rule that whether once the customer walks in through the door, there's a very friendly, warm way of interacting with the customer and ensuring that the customers come back. And for that reason, today most of my store managers and front end staff, actually, when we are a little under pressure, they say, "Sir, don't worry. We have a whole. I mean, other than the CRM that is there, we have a whole lot of customers on our phone, and we can just text them." And that is the level of bonding that we try and create. But it's a continuous process, as I said.
Yeah, yeah. And that's
And
very
I personally, whenever I travel, I ensure that I catch up with customers, I speak to them. Even if I'm not at the store continuously, there are people who I send to the stores, ask them for feedback, and ensure that those are worked upon.
And I think that's a level of personalization that I think is coming in the current context of the entire retail transformation.
So we try and put the being human aspect
Mm.
of our brand to everything that we do. We understand that we can't always say that we are being human and we tolerate everything. That's not possible because I've got a business to run.
Right.
However, the being human aspect comes when we look at people, when we look at our processes, when we look at our interactions with the customers, so on and so forth. Just to let I'm so grateful that this is the way that the organization culture is. During COVID, not a single person was laid off.
Wow.
Not a single rupee was deducted. And even if it was paid back immediately after we opened the stores to every single person who was in the system. So there are very few organizations in retail I've seen doing that. And smaller brands get affected faster. But here is an organization which stands by its commitment. And that's actually very important.
Truly, I think
Point.
truly the being human
Yes. Yes.
part of
yes.
it. And extending this, how did it become a case study in management institutes?
Actually, even I didn't realize this, but there've been people who've been watching how we actually are working continuously towards this aspect that from being okay. So we work out of two circles. Okay, so one is the conscious circle and one is the business circle.
Right.
Because if I'm not able to make money, I'm not able to do what we are typically meant to do. Right. Because if I go on making losses year after year, then obviously I don't have money. So obviously making money is very important at the end of the day. So which means my product has to be great. My price point has to be great. My go-to market has to be very nimble and fast. My expansion has to be quick and fast. My reach, because of the expansion, has to be there. And keeping all of this constant, then I look at the conscious circle. And now I'll just tell you a simple thing. And this is something which we love to share what we are doing because we want other retailers also to look at that and do that so that more number of people get benefited. For example, we are now going to implement this whole thing. And my team is talking to an NGO which does this is every SKU that you buy, every piece of garment that you buy at Being Human going forward, and we'll announce that in the media, we are going to plant a tree. And when we plant a tree, you're going to get a QR code. Once you get the QR code, save the QR code because you're going to see your tree actually how it is growing. So that is just one aspect of it. That is just one aspect of it. There is a whole lot of initiative. There are initiatives that we have done once, and now we're going to make it a continuous part of it, which is cleaning up. From our head office team or from our state team, regional teams, we ensure that we get into beach cleanings, then we'll get into road cleanings. Because if this does not become a continuous process, then I don't think we don't we don't deserve the name being human. And this is just one part of it. For example, we ran this campaign and which we are going to run continuously going forward is you can bring any old brand denim to our stores. We will take it, we will turn it around into bags and wallets and tote bags and shopping bags and give it back to you.
Wow, interesting.
This is what I call the circular ESG, as to where we have an NGO where people actually sit and do these bags.
Mhm.
So one, they are taken care of. Two, you're giving back your old stuff. Three, I'm also bringing you into my store without actually telling you to buy anything. But if you like something, then please go ahead and buy it.
Yeah.
So there are many such initiatives that we are doing, and you'll see going forward, we have a plethora of initiatives that we believe is our core initiatives, and we are continuously doing.
Super. Absolutely brilliant.
Yeah. So that's exactly what brought in people from the academic field to say that, hey, we've been watching what you guys have been doing, and this is something very interesting. And let me tell you, Jitin, this is not something that we are doing out of nothing great or it's out of the box. No, this is a very simple aspect of looking at what we can give back with a purpose and also run a retail company. And that's the core. That's the core. And it all trickles down from the from the mindset that the promoter family has in
Mhm.
terms of giving.
Interesting because not many brands really talk about this. I mean, some of them go, not many brands do this. Yeah. But it's really inspiring to see someone actually do this and do it and really take it really down, right down to the grassroots. And I think this thought and this kind of initiative, I think is what really drives the current customer segments like your Gen Zs, especially millennials. I think makes them believe that this is brand.
See, Jiten, what happens is, and we have done quite a bit of research to understand that the Gen Z and the millennial, they are very, very different set of consumers.
Right.
Okay. You cannot tell a Gen Z boy or girl what they need to do. And we are seeing it with our children, right? They are absolutely 200% more focused than what we used to be at their age, right? They exactly know what they want, when they want it, how they want it, and exactly what price they're going to pay for. So it's very important that if the Gen Z and the Gen Z also gets very clearly linked to a purpose, if a brand has a purpose. Now, if I give you an example of Tom's, the shoe guys, now they have a very simple motto: you buy one and we give one free. That's about it. That made me buy them because it's a feeling of it's a very emotional connect with a brand which technically drives a purpose. And there are very few brands in India which drive a purpose. I understand that everybody has or is forced to do CSR based on certain statutory requirements. But here we don't look at the statutory. It's a part of who we are. And that is exactly what drives us in terms of doing and giving back. This goes across every aspect.
So one question I have on Gen Z, right? Yeah, sure, they're confident, they know what they want. How do you as a brand engage with them?
So we engage with the Gen Z wherever they need to be. Where do you think the Gen Z engages? It's all here. The discovery happens on your phone. Today, entire discovery, literally on the fashion end, is happening on the phone. And once they discover it, then they believe that if they have to experience it, they come to the store. But if they are sure what they want, then they go through. So we engage with them through various medias, through various levels, through various initiatives that we do with Gen Zs. It is reaching out to colleges, whether it is reaching out to offices, whether it is doing something for maybe college fest, or whether it is doing something in Punjab for a college fest, or maybe Chennai for some kind of interaction. And of course, the medias that we use is completely digital. I mean,
Right.
today hardly we use hoarding newspaper ads. We do. It's not that we don't, but it's drastically come down. Most of the marketing, the advertising budget goes on digital. That's how we are engaging.
Okay. And does that budget also include building personalized relationships with that?
Well, yes, that's what I spoke about being relevant. So today, if you are not relevant, and there are many of my colleagues in the industry who believe that what I say does not stack up completely, and all respect to their opinion, I believe that today loyalty has moved from being loyal to a very different aspect called being relevant.
Okay.
So, and I'll explain to you how. When, and I'm sure you'll mirror this. When we were young, our loyalty was bought, right? We couldn't afford, maybe Nikes were there, Adidas's were there, but it was not available. One, it was not available. So I always say this, that in our time, and when I say our time, I'm talking 3 decades, 4 decades, 3 decades, 4 decades back, there was there were very few brands, and there was whole lot of time that we had, right? So going out to shop was an experience. Going out with your parents, watching a movie, going to the high street, buying some stuff, eating some chaat, or going to a restaurant having dinner, and then coming back home. And just reverse it. Fast forward. Today, what happens? Today, there is a plethora of brands. There is OTT on the television. There is a phone which we spend nearly 5 to 6 hours on, and we don't have time to go and shop. So where does discovery happen? It happens here, right? So therefore, when the discovery happens here, it is technically how relevant are you at that point in time to the TG that you're talking. There are many times I've seen Gen Zs looking at the phone. There's a D2C brand. They don't even know what that brand is. They just go ahead. They like the piece. They order it. So for us, it's very important to be relevant as long as we are talking to the TG. So there's a huge amount of research which goes to understand what the TG is exactly looking at. We have seen women come into our stores and pick up men's t-shirts and crew t-shirts just because they want to layer it. They want layering to happen. That gave told us, hey, why are we not doing women's wear completely? We did women's wear. Then we found men who are going and picking up some of the women's wear t-shirt and trying to layer it. We said, hey, this gives us a chance to launch a new category called blur. Now, what is blur? Blur is gender neutral. And we launched Blur 2 seasons back. It's picking up, it's doing very well. And this is how we stay relevant. This is exactly how we stay relevant.
Interesting. And I'm sure this one translates to a lot of your other activities that you undertake to engage with your guys.
Absolutely.
And a question, it could be a little controversial. You said digital first, you said physicality, right? Of course, the brands that are truly digital first, for them, technology is everything, right? They base the business on technology. What with brick and mortar stores? Some brands lead, right? I know you're amongst being human is one amongst them. But there are a lot of other brands who struggle to adopt or adapt to how you look at it. Right? Why is this gap? Why is this gap? Even today, there are brands that I think that don't really look at technology as something as a necessity.
So, do you know the digital camera was made by which brand?
I don't remember the name, but yes, I put it after it's Kodak.
I'm told, and maybe I don't know, but I'm told that the first digital camera was made by Kodak.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. They had already, this is what I'm told. The idea is they never implemented the digital camera. You know why? Because they were always scared what happens to our roles. Probably I'm also told that Nokia had done the digital touch phone first, but they didn't launch. You know why? Because they were scared what happens to our normal phone. Do we really need to do this? So coming back to your question, see, there are many brands which believe in pure physicality of the retail and are not very bothered. And I know some traditional retailers based out of Chennai who said, no, we don't need digital. And probably, yes, their supply chain does not, they don't need a supply chain software. Their people they exactly know, I know who I'm talking about without taking names in Chennai. These people they run into a few hundreds and thousands of crores of business. But in a certain point in time, when your consumers start adopting digital, then what do you do? So that's the point where you have to come. And I keep saying this 5 years back, 6 years back, I said omni-channel is here to stay. People have to move over to omni-channel. It's very important. And that's exactly what is happening today. People have to adopt. It's hygiene. It's not that I will not do it. You have to do it. There's no other way out. So for people who have not adopted digital, my only kind of a word to them is Please look at it, because if you do not, then there are people who are moving way faster than you and you would miss the bus. You'll still be relevant, but you'll still kind of miss the bus. And over a period of time, you become non-relevant, not because your product is bad, it's because you're not visible. That's how it is. And visible is just not doing digital marketing. Visibility is a plethora of things which actually activate a person's capacity to know the brand digitally.
Yeah, I think it all boils down to, like you said, how relevant you are across, not just
Yes.
with your customers, but across the business ecosystem that you operate in, right? Fantastic. There's always a question that I ask. So, in what's next, right? What's the next 12 to 3 years, 12 months or 2, 3 years, or retail? Your quick take on it.
Yeah. For the next 2 to 3 years, it's a very simple one line that I always tell my team, and we are working towards it really hard. We want to be a made in India global brand. And that we have taken it up very seriously, and we are working day in and day out to ensure that we are a brand which is made in India, which we want to take globally, and the journey has started. We are already present with 3 stores in Bangladesh, the fourth one coming up.
Wow.
We are launching Canada with our store in September, and 3 stores opening every year in Canada. We are launching Dubai on probably 15th of August if everything goes right. And then we are moving into Saudi Arabia. We are looking at Australia. We are looking at Singapore. We are already there in Nepal. We are looking at Myanmar. We are looking at Malaysia, and so on and so forth. And maybe, inshallah, I mean, going forward, we'll also be there in UK and US. However, the point here is a made in India brand able to penetrate into the global market with the kind of fashion that we do and with the purpose that we drive. That is something that we want to take across the world. That this is who we are and this is what we talk about. And this is exactly what every single franchisee of ours. So if there is a specially able person being employed here in India, it has to be that in Bangladesh, it has to be in Dubai, it has to be in Canada, and all across.
That's a terrific vision.
Yeah.
You're really going after.
And you know very well, Jiten, to achieve that, everything has to work clockwork back here with product, pricing, supply chain, marketing, you name it. Everything has to be clocked.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And truly, I think being human is being human at the end of it all, right? To quickly summarize, I think what some of the points that I picked up from and to add is how do you really manage your people processes, keeping culture and purpose at the center of whatever you do and stay true to the purpose, with the digital first becoming critical, still maintain your physicality so that you can offer customers a pretty seamless experience across. And most importantly, I think stay relevant, not just to your customers, but across the business that you are operating, right? Sanjeev, it's been an absolute pleasure.
And you forgot one.
Yes.
Which is drive the purpose.
Thanks. Absolutely. And thank you, Sanjeev, for this. Thank you for the
Thank you, Jiten. Thank you so much. It was lovely interacting on this Sunday morning. I wish you have a great weekend. Yeah.
You too. And wishing you great success with obviously the brand being human and obviously to you. So looking forward to the book.
Thank you so much.
Thanks so much.